deny things, they avoid things. When you ask them, how are you feeling? I don't know, and I believe them. They really don't know what they're feeling. At one time, I certainly didn't know what I was feeling. And when we don't know how to communicate with self, we can't possibly communicate with others effectively. That's called codependency. Trying to leap into relationships, trying to pay attention to them, but we haven't even paid attention to self. So learning to find a balance, back to that balance thing, of being able to communicate more effectively with self so that our relationships with others are authentic connections. And then towards the very end of the program, we talk, and I specifically saved this topic until the very end, dealing with some of the existential kinds of issues, some of the spiritual issues of life. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about 4 typical things that all human beings deal with. Death and the aging process. We talk about the freedom that we all demand in life. We want it. But along with freedom comes responsibility. That's the part we chafe at. That's the part that bugs us. So much responsibility. And yet, these are the professions we choose. It makes us feel good about ourselves, but at the same time, there's a lot of sleepless nights. We talked in the following session about isolation, and we talked about that just a few moments ago. Not so much our, well, that too, our loneliness, as well as our fundamental existential isolation, which is no matter how many people we have in our life, we're still ultimately alone. That's one we don't want to think about a lot. And the last topic is, how does one create and maintain a sense of meaning in our life? Without meaning, our life feels like it's just going in circles. It's going nowhere. So it's important for us to have a clear notion of what we consider meaningful. And everybody has to know it. So that is an overview of all the different kinds of topics that people who are struggling with excessive anxiety in their life need to learn and understand. And part of what I find real rewarding in a program like that is that as I meet with people personally as they're going through that program, they'll just say, I'm just feeling so much better. And I'll say, do you have any idea why? Well, there's so much provocation in the lectures, they can't put their finger on it. But they're just changing their attitude. They're beginning to realize, they're seeing the bigger portion of life. They're developing greater awareness. And as we develop that greater awareness, then life becomes better. As we learn to communicate with self, as we stop isolating, as we develop a greater sense of community, as we learn to have healthy conflict, and we enjoy more loving and intimate relationships, our quality of life simply goes up. And all of a sudden, the anxiety and the depression just don't make sense anymore. It just gone. And if it were truly an illness, that wouldn't happen. Unless you could take a lot of medications to treat the organicity of it, or if they had some sort of psychosurgery. But just the information can help us to get more understanding. I feel so much better. Any thoughts about it?
I'm just wondering, when you talk about these sessions, or I think one of the other words used is treatment programs or something like that, how does that, in what you do, and you talk about groups you work with, so do you do like group sessions, or are these?
I do. It's a 16-week treatment program. We meet once a week for an hour and a half, and I lecture. It's not a group therapy where people come in and spill their guts. They can say nothing. I mean, that's their right to say nothing. But usually after 2-3 sessions, persons start talking about what the lectures are stirring up for them, and that's really important because as they do that, they begin to realize, I'm not so unique. I had a morning program about 3 years ago, and 4 very public figures were in the program, and they all felt unique. And one of the women started talking about things in their marriage very courageously, and the other people started joining in, and by the end of it, it's like, I guess we're not so unique. But when you're in that highly public place, and you think, I'm the only one dealing with this, it's only going to cause more anxiety. So it was real helpful for them to have that the chance, short term, to share with them. Is Sanskrit?
Kind of going back, I'm just curious, going back to the first bullet there, establishing, maintaining close relationships. I'm curious your thoughts about, technology and people in a chat room, or maybe it's one-on-one with somebody they actually know in real life. Is that a viable way to establish intimate relationship in terms of communicating back and forth in this day and age of increasing technology?
Well, I was asked to present at a conference, lots of different kinds of conferences. It was ironic, my wife laughed that I was asked to speak at a technology conference, but my job was not to talk about all the pluses of technology, it was to talk about some of the things to be careful about. And I guess as I look at technology, I think, who can argue with the fact of the opportunities that are happening because of our technology? That's not even a question. But what we also need to become aware of is, what are the hazards? And I had a client I have them every week. But she was talking about an argument that she'd had with this person. She was dating some guy. She was like 41 years old, and she's been married a couple of different times. And she talked with me about this feud that they'd had. And at the end of the 45 minutes that I had spent with her, she informed me that it was all by text. And I said, Lisa, this doesn't even count. Technology is wonderful as a means of making arrangements, dates, but it's not about intimacy. First of all, with some of the internet sites, of course, you can lie you can be a guy instead of a gal that you're talking with, just messing with them. So obviously there's some real limitations, and to have these brides from over in Russia, I had a gentleman that found his bride over the internet, and they met for several months over the internet, and they went over there, and of course, they're in a honeymoon period. He said, well, yeah, came back, and then they get through that honeymoon period, and they can't figure out why they aren't communicating with them. So technology can put us in touch with people, but then the real work begins of learning how to give and take. And one of the words that I love to use as we talk about this whole issue of isolation, intimacy is about becoming known to another person. Intimacy. Emotional intimacy is about becoming known. So, if we're a person that avoids conflict, if we're a person that sidesteps issues, if we're a person that people have to drag things out of, unintentionally or not, we are avoiding intimacy. Intimacy is about becoming known. And with my wife, I want my wife to know me. I want her to know why I do some of the things that I do, and I want to know her. And with my friends, my good friends, I have levels of friends. I have a lot of people that I like to do things that special group of people at the top there. And that takes time and it takes risk. And with those people, I can text them to set up a time that we're going to get together, but then the intimacy begins, or doesn't. So I don't know if that speaks to that or not yet. There's great things that we can have from technology, but we need to be careful about what we can and can't have. And I get clients that say, I've got a lot of friends over the internet. They've never even gotten together. They play games. It's a nice way of staying in contact with high school friends, but is that intimacy? You know, when I put my name on Facebook, and my secret is given to the world, is that about intimacy? I hope not. So, levels of friendship. All right, let's take a break.